Hi, sir. How can I help you today?
Quite the beautiful tree you have there.
Yeah. Well, I would sell it to you, but how do you plan on taking this home?
So what'd you guys think? Maybe it's not everything you expected, right? It was still a great video, but it was lacking some key points. And let's go over what exactly happened that kind of created that situation that we're not really sure why the video looked the way that it did. So I've been making these automotive films for a long time, and I knew we'd have some serious rules and problems going into creating this concept. There are many rules outside of the problems that we would originally face. First rule, nobody could drive the car besides me. Now that posed a major problem. I could have been a stunt driver, right, and had somebody act the scene of getting out of the car, but ultimately that wasn't very challenging, and it wouldn't have solved anything. Yeah, it would have maybe saved us a little bit of time and allowed me to better direct the scene, but at the end of the day, we only had 1 hour, and I didn't want to pay any more money than I was already paying the DP and the actor that was there to show up. So I decided, why don't I just be in it? And that way it'll solve the problem in case we get in-car shots, you can see me inside the car, right? So the original concept as well had an ending. And I'm going to show you guys the original breakdown and concept for the ending of that video. Once you see that, it'll make more sense why I also wanted to be in the video. It ended originally in a woman's apartment where I was showing up, you know, and the tree was already decorated and set up for her. She comes inside, she gives me a big hug, and I look over her shoulder outside at the Porsche. And it cuts to an ending Porsche commercial. It's gonna be a Porsche spec, right? So it was never about her, even though she got joy out of the tree, it was more about the driving experience and doing that for the driver. So with that being said, there are a couple more rules that had to be taken place before we could even get into this film. The first rule, nobody could drive the car. We said that. The second rule, we only had 1 hour to film at the Christmas tree yard. We were getting the spot for free. The guy told us, he's like, hey, you've got 1 hour to do this of actual filming time. So we showed up an extra 40 minutes early, set up everything in the parking lot, and once he was like, okay, you can do it now, because he stayed after his shift for us, we executed the scene. That's the second rule. The third rule, the crew only had one evening to do this. The main idea was to get this all done in one evening, at least the racing car scene and the Christmas tree scene. The final scene with the girl would have been outside of the scope and would have taken place probably with either the same crew or a different crew, but at the time it didn't really matter. These two scenes would have been the most important part of the entire film. Now let's talk about some of the problems that we knew we were going to face and some of the problems that we didn't know we were going to face in producing this film. So when you're trying to do something this ambitious, you really want to have everything done in pre-production way before you even show up to the set, right? That's the idea with any film, but especially with something this ambitious, right? We're doing cars, there's a lot of risks involved, there's expensive cameras involved, there's also a lack of experience involved in certain areas of what I was attempting to achieve. So I'm the only person I know, at least in my wheelhouse, that doesn't cost thousands of dollars a day to show up and operate a Ronin 2 black arm cinema setup at 80 miles an hour, right? It's a very unique skill set, picture camera car. They're very hard to come by, these type of operators, especially to jump on board of a passion project in the middle of the night on a random Tuesday evening. So that was a huge problem. Our DP did not have any experience whatsoever operating a Ronin 2, let alone operating it at high speeds. And we also kind of forced him into a situation that he shouldn't have had to be in. The assistant camera operator was non-existent that evening, and he was forced to pull focus and operate the joystick at the same time while trying to attempt to get the shot. Now, usually that's my job. Usually I direct over a walkie-talkie in the main car as we film the Porsche going by. So my experience really lies in what I was asking of him that evening. And ultimately, it's not his fault, but he couldn't provide that. It's a very unique skill set. It takes a long time to learn those type of moves and those type of abilities, as well as you got to be completely in sync with not only the driver of the picture car, but the driver of the race car as well. So there's a lot of moving factors that were taking place, and I knew I was going to face that problem going into the film, but I was willing to risk it. I was like, I have to do this. I have to give this a shot. I have the car for a week. Let's just give this a chance. And whatever happens is what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I learned from all of my mistakes. That's the main problem with this entire film. We had nobody with experience operating a Ronin 2, let alone an assistant camera operator to pull focus at the same time. The second main problem was shooting on the Alexa Mini. Not it. Shooting on the Alexa Mini for this film was not the right decision. Now, it is the best camera we could have chose. We have Reds, we have Komodos, we have an array of Sony cameras, and to be honest with you, choosing the Alexa Mini was the worst thing we could have done. I opted to go for the Alexa because I thought, hey, it's the best picture quality, one, and two, I don't really shoot on the Alexa that often, so why don't I take this opportunity to produce an amazingly color graded film? Well, I wasn't really too familiar with the camera, and that's another one of my faults ultimately. I lost track of the ability that the camera was able to achieve in a low light situation. A lot of these shots are underexposed. A lot of these shots were really hard to bring back. You can even see it in the grade, you know? And it's not something I usually strive to achieve. What we should have done is shot on the FX6 in dual ISO on automatic lenses. That's what we should have done. Instead, I chose for the most complex and most sophisticated route to ultimately have the best end result, but it backfired, and it's not something I would ever recommend doing again, and it's something I learned from, right? You don't want to put not only a DP in a situation where it's his first time operating the Ronin 2 in a car chase, to have him pull focus as well and maintain also an assistant camera operator position, optimizing the low light performance of this camera. I've got the BTS guy in the back seat. I've got Rob in the back seat at the time. He was helping out. He was like a PA. And then you have Juan driving the X6. And, you know, we're on the phone, or we had walkie-talkies. There was a huge gap in the ability for us to curate exact moments like I'm usually able to do, because I had no choice but to drive the race car. Never again. Never again. Audio, real quick, wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't a chance. I mean, we didn't have the manpower. We didn't have the extra time to run the car without being filmed. There was just too many factors involved. I ended up pulling a lot of 911 and 992 audio from my database accumulated throughout the years. A lot of these, a little bit of pitch, a little bit of reverb, some gain adjustments, and all of a sudden it sounds like a new 992. Realistically, I pulled it from other films that I've worked on with the exact same car or similar engines. That was our audio situation. And that's what ended up happening with the audio. So now, what did I take away from this, right? Because that's the most important part. What are you going to take away from every film that you make, whether they're failures or successes? And I wouldn't call this a total failure. I really wouldn't. I think that there was so much learned here, and I think it's a cool little piece. It's only, you know, a minute long or less than that. What is it? The whole video is 45 seconds long, right? So I think it's a cool little piece, and a lot could have been done in 45 seconds. For the last scene, there was a lot of complex factors that I was unable to put together. We needed somebody's house with a window that we could frame the Porsche on the outside. We have apartments here. We all live in apartments. Getting the actual house set up and scene was going to be a very tough thing to do. And ultimately, by the time I had organized that, we didn't have the car anymore. Our time with the car was very limited. Failure to essentially plan on whose apartment we were going to do because the first option had fallen through resulted in a cliffhanger on the video. I hope you guys learned something from this. I hope there's a huge amount of takeaways. And if you guys have any questions about filming or anything else on how we were able to achieve this, I'm open to learning and listening. So looking forward to hearing from you guys. I hope you enjoyed the film, and our next one's going to be a little bit different.